Yeah, we. Hello.
And we're back here once again with another episode of the MSK show. And this is going to be episode 207. So I hope you guys had a great day. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your week that is ahead of you. And in this episode of the MSK show, I am going to be having a conversation with Marc the Cyborg. This is going to be his first appearance on the show. I did get a chance to meet him in real life last year at the Geeks and Gamers F&T Las Vegas meetup for 2024. And he was essentially, smoking outside the Millennium Fan Bar. And I just didn't know who the hell this guy was. So I walked up to him and I was like, hey, did this X person do this? And he was like, no. And I was like, oh, okay. We just kind of looked at each other and just left. So that's literally the actual interaction we had. Only thing that ever happened. So basically, can you confirm for the people that I'm actually a white black guy? I'm not one of those traditional hood ones that you probably see on TV.
I mean, I don't know. I guess I try not to classify people that way exactly, but I thought you were a fun person to talk to.
Yeah. Did you remember that I was a tall, rich, good-looking, handsome man? I had this like big, muscular stature.
I mean, yeah, exactly. You look like All Might there, right behind me.
God,
black.
Damn, man. You had to be one of those guys that's like, yeah, bro, you do. See, gotta be just like how it was in Superbad. A movie that they'll never be able to make probably ever again because people are really sensitive these days, actually. But what's going on, man?
I mean, I always think it's one of those things they can't make that. It's like they can. It's just you got to do it for a lower budget and just release it. And if it's funny, it'll still make money.
Yeah.
Comedies and horror movies, there will always be a market for if it's good. And they're also the two where sort of the more controversial they are, the more attention they get. So I don't know.
Yeah.
If you want to make Superbad 2, Seth Rogen, then yeah, sure, go ahead. I feel like
gosh. Well, since this is your first appearance on the show, so just in case you have appearances later on in the show's lifespans, like a second and third appearance, we won't have to do this again in the second and third appearances because we would have already have done it in the first appearance, actually. So we'll start with like your origin story. So how was your life growing up? And people who don't know, you live in Canada. You're not in the States, so you have a different type of like feeling.
Canadian cyborg.
Do you guys have mooses? When I walk around and maple syrup?
I mean, there are like in rural areas that you might see a moose. Generally not anywhere close to cities, but I have seen a wild moose. Not near my house, but like I'm also in the military, so I spent a lot of time in nature.
Oh God! See, I knew you guys had mooses up there. Oh my God! Jeez. Yeah. And you guys are the place that pilgrims first started at, right?
I'm not sure. I mean, I guess the first funny talking about military stuff. The first military unit I ever belonged to is older than my country. So I mean, at the very least, it was founded before we were actually in a proper country. So yeah, been around a while.
So when you were growing up, what did you naturally gravitate towards more, like comic books or video games, or was it like movies or whatever, or did you have like appreciation for all of them?
I'd say for me, mostly video games and movies. I did read a fair amount of comic books, but I didn't really collect them. Like I would kind of read books that my friends have, and like I have like one like storage bin full of comic books, but like old issues from the 90s. But yeah, no, I wasn't like a comic book guy necessarily. I did like superheroes a lot, and yeah, but yeah, I'd say that my fields of interest were more movies, like genre movies, science fiction movies, fantasy movies, stuff like that, and video games. And video games are kind of what I do on YouTube mostly.
So video games is your lane that you mostly stuck to, that a lot of. So what was the first game system you ever had?
Console, Super NES, Super Nintendo.
Super NES? Okay. Yeah. You remember your first game?
Yeah, well, it was Super Mario World because that was the one that was the one that came with Super NES. But I would play games at my friends' houses very often, like on their NES consoles. But my parents wouldn't get me one like for Christmas or my birthday or anything like that because I think my dad read, like, in an EGM that Super Nintendo was being developed, like, 3 years before it actually came out, so he was like, "Well, no, we're not gonna get you this one, we'll just wait till the Super Nintendo's out," and then yeah. And then, like, PC, I've been playing PC games since I was a wee boy.
Oh,
Doom,
so
I
you
played,
were
like,
on the
right when
whole
it came out.
PC. So you were on the whole PC master race before like it became this like big thing, you know?
Think I primarily played on PC from, like, I don't know about primarily, kinda pretty evenly played on PC from, like, 1994 to maybe about, like, I don't know, like, well, the end of high school, so, like, 2003 for me, that would've been, and then,
Okay.
just I started getting more into console stuff just because, like, I don't know, it was just I didn't really have as much time to be spending on a computer that I wasn't, like, video editing because I was in film school, and yeah, so I would just play PS3 games and Xbox 360 games, and then consoles were kind of easier to use during the time I was, like, off doing military training and stuff that was a little later in life, and yeah, and then in, I'd say about 2016, maybe 2015, I got myself a nice gaming PC, and then, yeah, got back into PC gaming and found it was in a much better state than when I left it too. It was a lot easier to a lot easier to get things working easily as well as, like, apply mods to stuff if things were like, if you were playing an older game that maybe wasn't functioning so well or it just looked old, you could find
Yeah.
mods that were made by people pretty easily and then apply them, and then for playing older console games, you come across emulators and then you realize, "Okay, well,
Do.
probably the better way for me to even be playing these games," and
So
at a certain point
you have a Dolphin on your computer actually?
yeah, I don't think I've had a computer without Dolphin on it for, like, the last decade.
Yeah. So you said because you a big thing about you, people know that you're part of the military. So what made you want to be part of the military? Did you watch a bunch of like 80s, 90s action movies?
I mean, sure, but, like, I guess, part of it was when I was 17, me and a bunch of my friends from my high school, joined
Mhm.
the Army Reserve. Just, honestly, for me, I think my primary motivation was just to make some money over the summer, like, doing basic training so that I could buy my uncle's 1993 Ford Escort off him, and, because I wanted a car. And, yeah, and that was it was not a super old car at the time, though, I mean, it did seem old, but, like, I was like, and this was probably 2002, so, yeah. I bought a '93 car in 2002, and now that seems like forever ago. But, yeah, and then I was just, Army reservist all through the time I was in university and while I was working in the film industry in Toronto, and eventually I just got kind of, sick of the Toronto film industry and didn't really like my prospects of getting the kind of career in it that I wanted, and figured I'd just end up being like a production assistant or something, and I would look at the production assistant on the sets I'd be working on who are what my age is now, and they just look like the most miserable people I've ever seen in my life. So I kind of figured that, like, if I was going to do something where I was going to be working super long hours and be tired all the time and be, I don't know, maybe miserable, then the other job that I had kind of in my spare time, which was Army Reserve, was something that I could do. I could retrain as a medic, give myself the ability to be a civilian paramedic after I leave the military if I ever wanted to leave. And then at least I'd be making regular, stable money and not just, oh, okay, I got a job on this movie that's shooting for the next 3 months and now I have nothing. Or I got a job filming this band. And then once they have all their, like, press kit stuff, they don't need my
Yeah.
help anymore, and, like, it was just so inconsistent, and I didn't really like living like that when I was kinda cresting, like, 27, and, yeah, so in 2012, I switched to full-time military, retrained as a medic, and, yeah, no, it's been 13 years now, so
So your film career, if you would call it that, what made you but outside of like the working long hours and the inconsistent jobs, was there anything else that you saw that you were like, I don't think this is for me? Was it just like too much pressure on set to perform when it came to
no,
like
no,
doing
no,
other duties?
nothing really like that. Like, I mean, ultimately, it's because I made a feature length movie, like an independent sort of action
Oh,
horror
it's good.
movie, and it didn't really make any money or like gain a big enough fan base that I had a career all of a sudden. So,
Mhm.
uh, I being a guy who could direct and write and do all the things in the industry that I wanted to do didn't look like it was going to happen anytime soon or ever. And again, once you start like getting towards 30, the like, okay, I'm gonna like grind it out and do everything I can in this industry, learn as much as I can, and make good stuff, and then hopefully something will work out. And if that starts not happening, like, I mean, granted, you maybe could say like I gave up too quick and I should have just kept doing it. And for all, like, I might have been way better than a lot of the writers and directors working today.
You could
But
have been Steven Spielberg, man.
maybe, but also like I wanted to get like get the kind of job that I could buy a house with, and like not have to worry about where my next paycheck's coming from, and have things like benefits. So like I just figured the military was a better bet, and it was work I didn't mind doing. Like I once you get through basic training, you kind of know whether or not you can be in the military, and I could. So I just decided, yeah, whatever. I'm just gonna run away from the Toronto film industry, go off and be a full-time soldier for however many years, and yeah, it's still going. Turns out 13 so far.
Yeah, so like looking at how bad film industries have went between, like, I guess you could say our states and where you live, I'm pretty sure you made the right decision to get out when you did, because all those people, well, for the most part, turned into a cult that basically, if you have any viewpoints that aren't just strictly left-wing viewpoints, or they just out you, or they just cancel you. And by cancel you, if you doesn't know this, they essentially try to make sure you have no job ever and make sure you make no money, and they just hate your guts for just having a different viewpoint. Even though movies are supposed to be this expressive thing where you're allowed to express your deepest desires and acting and writing and all that stuff. But I just find that so weird now, that
well,
literally.
I mean, I guess like I was never super worried about that, because I'm a pretty moderate guy, and and pretty apolitical. Like I tend to not get ultra passionate about any political issue. So I mean, I think, say, if anything, there might have been pressure on me to be more political than I was. But I mean, the movie I made was like about a effectively vigilante, and has like a bunch of just fight scenes in it, and it's really not the kind of thing that I was trying to make any like references to things going on in the American government or imperialism, the way like a Netflix Devil May Cry show decided to make. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's very much like America bad, and oh, by the way, the demons in hell are actually good, and we shouldn't be oppressing them the way that we are. And I was just like, what are they even doing here? And yeah, no, that was never really the kind of stuff I wanted to get into, but that wasn't the reason I left. It was mostly just I was looking at the amount of money I was pulling in each year, and like how consistent my income was, how I was able to like actually save, and it wasn't looking great for me in that regard. And you can only really be living in cheap apartments or your parents' house for so long before it starts feeling kind of sad. So it was like, okay, well, like I can just go off and do like a term of service in the military. Like honestly thought it would be like 4 years and then I'd be out, but no, I just decided to stay in because it was a pretty good job. And then like I kind of did come back to entertainment in some way, because I just eventually started making review videos about video games, and then kind of landed me here.
So with video games, you said you started with the Super NES. Were you mostly like a PlayStation or a Xbox guy if you had a console choice for the most part?
No, I mean, it's sort of the reason I'm very anti-exclusivity in general. I just always wanted to get all the platforms, because for me it wasn't I never felt allegiance to a brand. I was just like, no, I want to be able to play those games. And like, if anything, it's always pissed me off that I've had to buy more than one 300 to 600, I guess now, dollar plastic box that performs the same function. So, and it's kind of why PC gaming is the one I would often advocate for the most, because I'm like, this is the place that has the most games, like, flat out. Because if you're like, oh, well, but I mean, PS4, I don't know, they have more exclusives. I was like, yeah, but every single PS3, 2, and 1 game is on PC right now, everybody. Like, it's you might have to do a little digging to get them, but you can play them on one system without having to buy 5 devices that perform the same function. It's the same. It's the same reason I said that. Like, look, if this was a viable business strategy, there would be a Disney exclusive Blu-ray player that you would have all the Marvel movies and Star Wars movies and stuff on. There would be a Warner Brothers Blu-ray player, but just like people have just been trained to think that's okay when it's video games. They're like, oh, but they're specific platforms and they all have their unique things. But guys, no, it's a computer running software. That's it. Like, It was at most these special features and, like, things that they can do to make it so that this delivers an experience. It's like controllers, yes, they each have their own controller, and some
Yeah,
of the controllers have different
um,
features, and you
I
can plug
always
all of
liked
them
the
into a
feel.
PC.
Yeah, like there's the feel of a different controller. Like the PlayStation controller, I think has the worst feel. If I had to give it a feel, I think the Xbox controllers and the GameCube, not GameCube, oh my god, Nintendo controllers always just kind of felt better. But that's what I always kind of like thought about too. Like for me, I didn't really know about like console wars until like the 360,
I just always thought they
PS3
were
era.
lame. I just be like, yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, sure, like, I guess you guys only want to buy the one system, but I mean, I would like to be able to play Metal Gear Solid 4 as well as Halo 3. I mean, sue me, right? Like, is it that crazy that I want to be able to play both those games and I don't really care about the box itself?
yeah. I just kind of wanted to game as wherever I could, having certain games locked behind like just a console was like, damn, now I have to go out and justify spending what $400 for a new console just to play like a few more games. Where if
Yeah.
like if they were just available on this console, I would just buy those games now. But I,
Yeah,
I get it from a business
there's
point of view.
nothing good about it for the end customer, and I'll tell you this much, I don't get it from a business point of view, and you wanna know what the best evidence
Hmm,
for that is in the news cycle right now? Nintendo raising their much lower budget games to $80 a pop,
yeah,
because you know why that when they wouldn't have to do that? If they were able to sell it to more than just the Nintendo Switch 2 customers. But they don't wanna do that because they want you buying the hardware, but they don't make that much money off the hardware, so they gotta jack up the prices on the games.
hmm,
And, like, I mean, it's like, guys, this is not good for us either.
yeah,
And as far as, like, competition goes, it's like, well, hardware competes with hardware even without exclusives. Like, that's why NVIDIA and AMD are constantly competing to make better GPUs than each other, or AMD and Intel with
yeah.
CPUs. Jojo. Sorry, I got a growling puppy.
Oh, it's okay.
Rocky's gonna cross into where he's gonna be, and then she'll settle down. Here, talk for a second. Give me your thoughts on that.
Oh, you're fine. So the thing that I think boils it down that the companies mostly think about is they think the average person, and I think pretty sure we can kind of understand this throughout most of the time in gaming, is that like the average person doesn't really check like all hardware specs and everything that comes with game consoles anymore. They just kind of buy a console, put it, they fix it up, get it on their TV, put a game in and turn it on, because I that's what they're probably expecting the most average person in doing. Because like Nintendo's Switch 2 that's coming out, if people don't see what's been going on with that. The Switch 2 is going to have 256 gigs at this point now, actually. And if you look at
And
the
new
time
format
span,
SD cards that aren't even available in my country yet.
yeah, good lord, you guys are going through it rough. Damn tariffs. I'm just kidding.
Well, I mean, you guys, like, even if you have a terabyte memory card on your Nintendo Switch, you gotta buy a new one because now you need the express format one, even to run Switch 1 games.
Yeah, it's another one of those things where like if you're offering a 256 gig console in 2025, like the Xbox and PlayStation 5 are offering a terabyte
I mean, like, and
flat
as
out.
like storage capacity is probably like the last thing I look for in like in hardware because I mean I add storage capacity to it anyways. I mean, and granted, I don't really use a console all that much, but I mean I generally will create drives so that I can capture footage. So I've got like multiple 4 terabyte SSDs in my like editing computer. But I think that the trick to like, oh, people don't look at the hardware specs and stuff. It's like, well, I mean, they would if the games weren't the things that would be pulling the eye, right? Like, I mean,
True.
if it was
Mhm.
just most games were available on every piece of hardware that plays video games, then you would be looking at the price, most specifically the price, what it does, and that could be resolution, performance, things like that, and things like storage capacity or portability. Like the one thing Switch does have that I think actually the first Nintendo Switch did in that was very good for the hardware market was having the idea of like, hey, what if a portable system was also your home system and you can just play things anywhere and still plug it into your TV and play games with your friends. You know, like there were multiple formats in which you could play a Switch game that I thought was novel, and other companies have followed suit on, which is why we have things like the Steam Deck or the ROG Ally and like
Mhm.
all those other handheld things. And apparently, Microsoft is looking into doing a similar thing for their next console, if the rumors are to be believed as well.
Mm.
And I don't think that fewer people would have bought a Switch if you could also get Mario Kart on Steam or Breath of the Wild, you know, like, it's like,
True.
no, I think that, like, lots of parents would still buy the $300 thing that their kid can take with them on the bus, but also plug in at home so that they don't have to buy 2 platforms, and the but if you could then also, like, a guy like me, buy the game on Steam and just run it in higher specs, like, I don't see how that's a loss for anybody. The people who do are the ones that are like, "Oh, no, but the value in my system is having games that other people can't play unless they buy my system." And I'm just like, "What are you, 10?" Like, how is that good for you? Like, I just don't see the benefit to the end user at all, and I don't know,
Yeah.
like, a lot of people will argue me pretty hard on that because I know some people are very, very keen on exclusivity being the absolute best thing ever. I really don't agree.
You know what's crazy is that even Microsoft's new president, I think they switched out that one black lady they had, or it's maybe it's the same person. One of them had
Sarah
mentioned the
Bond,
fact that
I think, she's actually heading up, an initiative that I think is gonna be pretty interesting, but they haven't
yeah,
really talked too much about it yet. Effectively, it's a emulator system for Xbox 360 games and original Xbox games. So
yeah, it was one of these things where I think they had one of the Microsoft presidents had an interview from the gaming side of it, and he said basically because we all know saw the headline, they kind of want to not have as much exclusivity moving forward because I think they've realized the fact that inherently in the long run does hinder sales because
yeah,
you know
limits the size of the market you can sell to,
yeah even
which,
Square
I mean,
Enix
again,
had
if
said
your
that
whole
they're
thing
probably not
is
going to do
we
that anymore.
I mean, yeah, and I think they shouldn't have for quite a while because, when you're like, I guess I sort of understand it when you're developing hardware that you want to put things on to draw eyes to the hardware to be like, "Oh, like, I gotta buy this to get to play Mario Kart World," or whatever the new one's called. Yeah, it's Mario Kart World, right? Um, yeah, I understand that, but, like, the third-party companies that don't have platforms, like, it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna get Sony to give us $3 million to make Final Fantasy Remake exclusive to PlayStation 4, and then it's gonna take the game forever to actually hit the audience that we want it to hit, and then wonder why the sequels to it sell less. It's like, well, I mean, you limited your audience consciously for a little bit of money now, but I think that Steam is the best example of if you launch things in a place where the most amount of people can buy them, you will make the most amount of money, even if you're giving 30% of that
Mhm.
to Valve. Because it's the thing I've been using as the best mathematical equation for saying why the 80 and $90 games that Nintendo is doing is dumb, is that even on one platform, selling one game at $60 to 3 people is more money that you have made than selling one $90 game to one person. And it's more than 3 to 1 if you're dealing with that kind of price jump too. So it's like, ultimately, this is digital software that you're selling. Now, physical copies, bit of a different story there, even though, like, it's not really all that much different, but especially when we're talking about digital games, it costs nothing to sell more copies. So making the nothing, you don't have more logistics, no more copies having to be put in trucks is what I mean by it costs nothing to sell more copies. So limiting the amount of people who will want to spend that money and buy the game will make you money by orders of magnitude more than if you have it locked to a single platform, so which they have to buy a, I guess, $499 entry fee in order to even give you that $80. And then once they're there, it's like, well, is that game gonna be something that they're gonna be wanting to spend, that many people are going to wanna part with that much money for?
Yeah,
And maybe Mario Kart, they'll probably get away with it. Maybe a Zelda game, they might get away with it. Though traditionally, Zelda games aren't giant sellers either. Same with Metroid. Most of the good Nintendo games that don't have the word
their biggest
Mario
titles are
or
like Super Smash Brothers that usually sell very
yeah,
well.
like, and
Yeah,
anything with Mario in the title. Like, generally, Mario games sell quite well. Mario Kart is probably one that is going to sell a whole bunch
that's probably
regardless.
going to be the highest selling game on the console, barring whatever Smash game that comes out with the Switch 2.
But I mean, like, Kirby and the Forgotten Land on Switch cost the same amount that Breath of the Wild on Switch cost, and I don't think you can get away with charging charging $80 for a new Kirby platformer, because Kirby is good. Like Forgotten Lands, actually a really great game, but I don't think that there's going to be that many people that will say, "Yeah, I might as well pick this up." It's far outside of impulse buy territory, and Nintendo games
Mhm.
tend to not go on sale either. So it's like now you're asking people to part with a whole bunch of money for one game. And I don't know. I think it's just going to result in everyone who owns that platform buying fewer games overall, which in turn means fewer copies of any individual game being sold. So I don't even agree with, oh well, they got to make more money. It's better business. I was like, no, but they're going to make less money this way. Like I'm just like, I don't
Yeah.
see that logic at all.
So for me, because we'll go back to the thing you said earlier, which is the multi-platform thing. I think that's the thing that does benefit the Switch too, is because, like you said earlier, if people had to justify spending money on two different consoles to get these other games to not to play other than Nintendo games,
Mhm.
well, if there's less exclusivity going forward with the newest generation of consoles, if those games that are going to be on the PlayStation and the Xbox, if they're going to be on the Switch, that inherently does benefit the Switch. The problem, as you said, whereas like if
Well,
you test the market out
I
with
mean,
$80 to $90 games,
do you think anyone is going to be picking a Switch 2 over a PlayStation 5?
that's a good question. I would. I mean, the Switch became the highest selling game console of all time. What the
Yeah,
Switch?
no,
Oh,
but what
sorry,
I'm
second,
yeah,
second.
no.
So
But the thing is, most people who own a Switch and want to play games like AAA, very
yeah.
nice looking, high graphic movie games, they're not only buying the Switch, they also have a Switch. Whereas
Mhm.
I think the market of people that want to play PS5 games, I don't think are going to be like, well, I'm selling my PS5 and getting a Nintendo Switch too because
No,
Cyberpunk's
no.
on there now. I don't think that's ever going to happen. It's just
Yeah,
it's not.
but
The
it's just
Switch
an
2
added
is
bonus.
roughly as powerful as a PS4 Pro.
Yeah, I would just say it's
So,
an added
like
bonus for the Switch to get these other games that you normally in most game generations wouldn't have had, you know? Now that doesn't
sure, yeah.
necessarily mean that it's going to be a make or break, but that means the Nintendo people don't have to go and justify spending X amount of money on, the other
Well,
consoles.
I mean, hey, I don't think there's a reason why any game that can be ported even to Switch 1 shouldn't. And
Yeah, yeah.
and like, I think that I third party games, I I think going to Switch 2 is a good thing, but I don't think that Nintendo is going to be competing against other platforms for the third party titles that look and run better on even the other
Oh,
consoles,
yeah.
right? Like, so I mean, ultimately, it is the exclusives that are still going to be driving a lot of people to that console, and I think that the only reason why it's going to be a problem for them this time around is because of that pricing.
You think I think
I think that
hmm,
the way around that, the way to just
yeah.
make more money is to say, "Hey, you know what? There's too much overhead in hardware. We're gonna get out of the hardware business." There with
You probably should, yeah.
The Switch, we revolutionized the portable hybrid systems, but now there's other ones that you can get. And hey, tell you what, we're gonna still develop for the Switch 1. Everything is gonna be able to run at 1080p, 30 FPS max on Switch 1, and you can play them at higher end if you want to get a Steam Deck or something. But we're gonna stop producing hardware and just focus on making and selling video games to more people. Because and like the counter argument is, well, but Nintendo makes so much money doing what they're doing. It's like, yeah, okay, then why are they jacking prices up?
Yeah,
Like,
see,
why are they the one to be pushing the
I would
boundaries
just always
on
expect that though. I
game
mean,
MSRPs?
for me, I've always, just as a person, I lived a long time. I'm pretty sure you have too. Damn it, we're old, man. I always expect things to go up in price though. I don't like, because people have
Well,
always said that prices are going. I've never seen prices go down on anything. Prices are always going up. I would expect them to raise their prices, because if they're looking at the market and seeing potentially what the prices are, there's no reason to charge less when everyone's charging this. It's just,
well, is everyone charging that?
that's, yeah, and it always varies too. Because as you said
But
earlier,
like,
there's
I know
more
because
revenue streams now.
here's the thing. Look on Steam and look at the average price of most games you see. It's significantly lower than $60. And a lot
Yeah,
of
they're
the
like something
games
like
that
30, 10. Some could be like $30, 20
well,
bucks
because the
actually.
thing is, game development is not just the big AAA companies. And the
Hmm.
big AAA companies tried to justify the $70 price jump by saying games are getting much more expensive to develop. And
Hmm.
that's true, but game budgets are also being managed terribly. And like, there's
Mhm.
a lot of people that are making a lot of money for not doing a whole lot in these big game studios that have like 10,000 employees. When most of the better games that I've played in the past 10 years were developed by like 200 or fewer people. Some of them were developed by one person. And,
That's crazy.
like, ultimately, it's scale is the difference between now and then. Because 'cause I've heard people also make the argument, it's like, "Oh, well, when I was a kid, games cost $90." It's like, well, when you were a kid and you bought a Super Nintendo game for $90, which you didn't because the flyers that get shown are Canadian, so I did, you didn't, Americans.
Also,
Yeah,
to put a
it's always the same,
put a
like,
fork in
Toys
that
R
too.
Us it's
That
always the same
yeah.
Canadian Toys R Us pamphlet every time, and I'm like, "Guys, Americans saying we paid this," and like, "You guys did not, that's a
Also,
Canadian
the kids didn't pay
flyer."
that, their parents did, and
Yeah.
also
Well, I mean,
giving
you're
up
also
a
dealing with
life
like
too.
it's a PC part that you're buying with every single cartridge game, the old style cartridge games. Like it's flash card now for the Switch
Yeah,
cartridges. It's not really the same. You were buying a little motherboard that had like a whole little system of computer parts that were put into it, had a battery that was actually running things like the save file and the memory, which is why so when people collect old cartridge games, it's like, yeah, well, you do got to change the batteries in those, or otherwise you will not be able to save your game. And I think a lot of people don't think about that really. But there was a lot more, I guess, engineering that had to go into the physical copies back then. But more importantly than that, the big detail that I think most of them miss most often is the market size. It's like, yo, you don't get it. When I was a kid, it was like me and three other nerds in my classroom who played video games. Now it's the whole class and all of their parents. It's different. It's not the same. You can make more money by setting a price point that's attractive to people and having more people buy your game than you can saying, "Yeah, this is gonna be $100 now because of the market and inflation and blah, blah, blah." And it's like, "Yeah, okay, but you know now far fewer people are going to buy your game." Which is why what are the you know what the games that make the most money with the biggest player counts cost? Nothing. Free to play games tend to make the most money because those are the games that just say, you can just start playing this video game, engaging with it and having fun. And if you want to spend money, we're going to give you some options to do that. And people tend to do that. And I
Yeah,
think that for single player games that aren't nearly as easy to monetize, having a small team size, having a budget that is reasonable and well managed, and setting a price point that people will actually find attractive, and allowing sales that even the people who are iffy on it might see it on a Steam sale and just say, "Oh, yeah, you know what? Like for $20, yeah, I could give this, I don't know, new, like, well, whatever, like a Quake game a shot." I don't know if they made a new Quake game in a while, but I love Quake and I miss it. But, you know what I mean? And like, ultimately, the more players engaging with your game, the bigger audience you're going to have. And if all those people are giving you any money and you made a good game that they will then talk about and recommend to people, you will keep selling that game forever to new players because you know what? Every 10-year-old is turning 11 this year. Every 11-year-old is turning 12 this year. And everyone who's too young to play a game that was really awesome 5 years ago might be old enough to play it this year. So, like, you're
yeah,
never gonna run out of customers full stop. So,
yeah,
and, like, that's the thing, it's the idea of just, we gotta make these games ultra expensive because they cost billions and billions of dollars to make, and we gotta just keep making them more expensive because we need to be able to see the pores in the cheek of the main character while you're running around and shooting, even though no one who actually plays video games cares about that stuff. It's just like,
mhm,
no, like, just you chill on the graphics, chill on the like paying teams of 10,000 people, have a good reasonable budget that is not hard to clear profit on, set a price point that will not give you a lot of money per unit, but will give you a lot of sales and enough per and making enough profit per unit that you can actually clear your budget and start making actual money. I think that's the best way to treat the video game market. And I think there's too many people who just will simp for a company, especially Nintendo, because Nintendo's the one people love running to the defense of and just being like, yeah, well, you know why they're spending $80 on Mario Kart? Because people will pay it. And you know what? The market will decide. And it's like, yeah, you know what? They would have paid 62. And I think more people would. And as much as you say the people will pay it, fewer people will. Like, one way or another, it's like there will be fewer people that are
mhm.
diving into the Switch 2 right away than there were for the Switch 1. And Nintendo's learned this lesson before too, like with Wii U and to an extent GameCube even.
Yeah, so when it comes to the Switch has been around for what, like 8 years at this point now? So,
Yeah,
you know,
2017.
yeah, so like like Nintendo consoles, from what I know, because I've had a lot of them throughout my life, they usually don't just up and make a brand new one. They kind of let the life cycle of it extend out for a very, very long time. So like a Switch 2 is going to be around for a very long time. So about what, 2033 max, probably
I mean,
2034.
we'll see how it does. Like, I mean, again,
Yeah.
it's like if it turns into the kind of thing that all the parents who say, "Well, my kids really like playing Fortnite, and yeah, this thing is $500 and the games are $80, so it's like, yeah, they're just gonna keep playing Fortnite."
Yeah.
Granted, I think Fortnite's cringe, but like, if I'm the normie parent who doesn't know anything at all about video games, then Nintendo should be considering that that is their real competition, the game that is free or games that are free or very cheap, and not, well, everyone loves Mario, so
Well,
I
yeah.
think they've gotten in their head that it's like, oh, we're Nintendo, whatever, they'll pay it, fuck them. And I don't think that's the best way to go about
Well,
it,
to
and
be
I think it
fair
might bite
to
me
your
in the ass
argument,
this time.
we'll have to see how the sales pan out for the Switch 2 whenever we get it, because I
Oh,
think,
yeah, and I think it'll definitely do pretty well in its first year, but,
yeah,
like, I mean, unless they start seeing price drops, I really think I don't think it's gonna come close to hitting the Switch 1
I,
levels of popularity.
I always look at it like this: value of investment versus time. So, like, if you paid $80 for Mario Kart and you played it for, let's just say, about 10 years, do you see that as a valuable time versus money
Doesn't matter.
investment?
That doesn't matter. It actually doesn't. It matters to the person who likes the game, but any person can end up really liking any game and wanting to play that game for a long time. As far as like business decisions go, it's like, do people want your game enough to pay $80 for it before tax?
Nah, that
And
would come out to what, like $95, almost $100 at that
you know
point.
what it
Yeah.
is for us? $115 before tax.
Yeah, because people were already paying $90 plus for games already in your country.
A $70 US dollar game right now is either $89.99 or $93.49.
Yeah, that's why I never got the argument. People are like, we don't pay $70 for games. Other people outside of the US were
I
already
mean, again,
paying
which is why it's
more.
hilarious to me when the people who say we used to pay $90 for games share the Canadian Toys R Us flyer. Then I'm just like,
And they never did because their parents did. Their parents bought those. And keep in mind, this is my argument, generally speaking. If you get a lot of years of value out of a game, that's like an $80 investment up front. I don't mind it as much. I kind of see it like a PC, because how people do it for PC. They'll be like, well, it's so much money up front. Yeah, but if that PC runs like 10, 20, let's say 10 years, you got way more worth of your investment. 10 years worth of an investment of $1,000 is great.
And I mean, again, like there's also the fact that like you could buy a PC from 10 years ago and still be able to run like most of video game history on it. So like,
not on this PC I have. I had to get a new one.
But you know what you can do on Nintendo Switch 2? You can pay them a monthly subscription to rent 3 GameCube games.
They're probably going to increase that monthly membership, because I have the Switch.
But now, like the point is, it's like the GameCube games that they announced that you can play if you subscribe to their online service, the premium edition of their online service, which is more expensive. You don't own those games, but the only ones you have access to are Wind Waker, F-Zero GX, and what was the last one?
Pokemon Gale of Darkness?
Soul Calibur 2.
Yeah, and that one too.
No, it's just 3. It's Soul Calibur, Wind Waker, and F-Zero.
They did say more will be added over time, but give or take how these.
I mean, yeah, but it's like more will be added to the like monthly pay rental service. You know where the copies of flat out all 3 of the games that they mentioned are going on my PC when I stop paying Nintendo? Nowhere. They're going to stay there. So, like, already now, the better way to play GameCube games is on a PC with an emulator. And Nintendo should be trying to compete with that by being like, now you can buy any Nintendo Switch game on Nintendo Switch 1 or 2. Each of them are $5.
The Switch 2 is backwards compatible, is it not? I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah.
So, but like I'm saying that if they wanted to compete with the emulator market with something other than lawsuits, the thing to do is to just make the games available for a reasonable price point and have people allowed to own them. Because honestly, flat out, if right now they said, hey, if you own a Nintendo Switch, Wind Waker is $5, I'd buy it. Be like, why
Yep.
not? I have a Nintendo Switch. It might be cool to play Wind Waker on the go. Even though I can play Wind Waker on my Steam Deck right now, it'd still be like, okay, well, at least I own the game. But they're
Can
like,
you
hey,
give me
no,
your Steam
subscribe
Deck?
to our online service plus the expansion plus pack. I'm like, no, because
Because
then
I
if I
think,
stop paying for it, I can't play those games anymore. That's not
yeah,
a good deal.
because when you were talking about them trying to capture a market, I think that's them trying to compete with Game Pass and GameFly, where you like rent games and kind of have a subscription
Yeah,
service. Because they
but
have a subscription
you
service
know what
now,
you
but
can
it's
do
not
with
that good.
every game that's on Game Pass?
You can
You
well, okay, you
you can
rent games, you could just give them back, right?
no. You can just download any game you want that's on Game Pass and
Oh,
play
for
it to
sure,
your
yeah,
heart's
yeah.
consent. But you know what you can also do with all of those games? Buy
Which
them.
is and sell them too if you don't want them.
Well, I mean, if it's physical, but
Yeah,
if you I'm saying that you can go on a PC or on an Xbox, you can play those games on Game Pass by just being sub to Game Pass, downloading them and playing them on Game Pass.
yeah.
But if you decide, hey, there's not a lot I want to play on Game Pass anymore. I pretty much exhausted the ones I like, but I liked this one, this one, this one, and this one a whole lot. You can just in the Microsoft Store buy those games, and then they're on your account forever. So it's like Nintendo doesn't allow you to do that with their old console games. You can only rent them.
Hmm. It's true.
So it's
Oh,
like,
the
well, you got to pay Nintendo monthly forever if you want to play NES, Super NES, Nintendo 64, and GameCube games. It's like, fuck you. How about that?
do you look at that as any different from like when you have to do it for like Game Pass or when PlayStation has the PlayStation Plus kind
Yes.
of thing? Yeah,
Yes, because you can buy those games.
yeah.
Because some people don't want to be paying every month to play the games they like. They want to own their games. And Nintendo isn't letting you do that with their old console games. They do with
Mhm.
Switch games and now Switch 2 games. But NES, Super NES, GameCube, and N64, because there's no Wii games yet, aside from the remasters they've done. But those games, including the 3 GameCube games, you do not have there's no amount of money you can pay Nintendo to own Ocarina of Time right now. Think about that.
Unless they put it out and remaster it,
But they
which
haven't. But they
they have
haven't.
not haven't yet. Yeah.
Right now, if you want to play Legend of Zelda: The Ocarina of Time and own it forever, you need to track down an N64 or a GameCube, or a Wii that has one downloaded on its virtual console already because the virtual console is shut down.
Damn.
So, like, I mean, you used to be able to buy Nintendo digital games for their old console games with the virtual console that was
Mhm.
on Wii U even, but for Switch, they switched over to not having any virtual console at all, making it so that when they did start letting you play NES and Super NES games, which were the only ones you could play at first, you had to be a member of the Nintendo Online service, and there's still no way to buy those games. You can only pay a subscription fee to play them while you're subscribed, and that's insane. And like when people say like, "Oh, Nintendo, like they gotta raise the prices because they need money," it's like, well, sell your games. Like, stop being Disney and putting things in the vault. You know,
Yeah.
just let
Well, I
people
never
buy the
understood that
games.
argument either. When people said, "Oh, they need money," it's like, guys, they don't actually. As we know, how much money they probably make off the Switch and everything else they do. They
No,
don't
I
need more
mean,
money.
the
That's
reason anyone comes up with any reason why Nintendo's doing what they're doing and how it's actually fine is the same reason it always was, because they want to defend brand. It's the same thing with Disney Star Wars fans saying that Star Wars is great and it always has been and it always will be no matter what comes out. It's just, nope, Nintendo, they're the best and we love them. So anything they do is fine. And you know what? They have the right to protect their IP and to protect. And it's like, guys, they're video games. They make video games. They're not holy. They're not like they're not God. You know,
I
you
would
don't
say
have to pray to them. It's fine.
there's one wrench that people do use that is somewhat maybe understandable, which is the games that they make. They people claim that they're quality enough to the point where like the others two, their games are down
I
in
mean, like
quality compared to what it used to be.
don't get me wrong. I love a lot of Nintendo games. I think they're great at developing software
Yeah.
when they do make good games. I just
Yeah.
think their business strategies are the most evil in the industry. It's
Oh
just
yeah.
they don't make as many blatantly stupid decisions that people don't let them get away with like Ubisoft and EA do, so they get a lot of defense. But ultimately, like I think Switch 2 is going to be the project that makes people start being like, hey, maybe Nintendo has been like bending us over the barrel and we've just been letting them because the barrel says Donkey Kong on it.
Yeah, because I think that's what
How's that
people's
for a
lines are
joke? Pretty
drawing.
good joke.
If people are getting the game quality that they want out of them, I think people kind of like overlook everything else. Because with the other two, people have claimed the game quality has dropped so dramatically that they shouldn't even justify giving this game out for this price. So if they're thinking, hey, if Nintendo was charging this much, but if the game is this good, then that kind of equals out. But it's like, I don't know. Isn't that just two sides of the same coin at that point, though?
I
You
mean,
know?
like, I guess there's no Nintendo game that I would want to buy less if their business practices were better. I'll just put it that way. Jojo, it's okay. Jojo, it's okay. We have emulators at home, baby. It's
God,
fine.
aren't they outside dogs?
Oh God, no. You seen these dogs? They're tiny.
You have chihuahuas? Oh my god.
I've got a Chihuahua and a poodle, but I
That's
do
why they whine so much.
every day that it's above 0, I do take them out for a walk, or not raining. Yeah, above 0 and not raining.
Good lord. Well, speaking of, could we talk about Nintendo so much? The other thing I want to tackle, which was,
Jojo.
I think the only real issue that, I mean, people have complained about the price of the console. I think that's negligent in the grand scheme of things. Like $450 is kind of nothing.
I mean, yeah, I don't think the price of the hardware is all that bad, really. I think it could have been worse. Here, though, still $630 before tax, and like,
and for you guys, it might be that. Yeah,
Switch was $399 for us when it came out. My Switch OLED was $399.
I have a Switch OLED too. Yeah, it's crazy. For me, I could understand all the arguments people utilize for the Switch 2 as far as like business practices, game prices, subscriptions, all that stuff. All this stuff is reasonable. My only real problem is people complaining about the price of the console. It's like, if you have a life where you can't essentially get new things because of the life decisions you've made, that's not really, I mean, that's been the case for everything. That's like literally life itself. You can't just, some people just can't get the newest thing when it drops because you might have medical bills or anything, just like kids or whatever.
But I mean, again, I think early adopting on any hardware is something, Jojo is something that like you do need to obviously be conscious of your budgeting. For example, Metroid Prime 4 is not a launch game. So while I do want to pick up the Nintendo Switch 2 hardware, even though I don't know if I'm really ever going to buy anything on it other than like Metroid and Zelda games when they come out. I'm not getting it right away because the game that I want to play on it's not even coming out right away, and I don't particularly like Mario Kart these days. But I guess the big thing for my issues with the pricing is the sticker price of games, because again, Sony said that, it's the rising cost of game development and that's why we need to push to 70 from 60. Nintendo games are significantly cheaper than any other major publisher's AAA titles, and like even calling them AAA is, you know, guess how much Metroid Dread cost, which is honestly my favorite game that's on the Switch.
Wasn't that around like $60 or $50?
No, cost to make.
Cost to make? Oh, I don't know.
$30 million. $30 million, which, you know, sounds like a lot of money, but in the context of big budget game development, it's like a AA game at most. Guess how much Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 costs to make?
I'll say 10 million.
65, but like it's also a big open world game with big, pretty realistic graphics. So again, the way so much money is being lost in the game industry isn't necessarily even the budgets themselves. It's how the budgets are being spent. Yeah. And a lot of these games just put, God, Jojo, come on. Rocky's being a good boy. Just be good to him. And a lot of there's just tons of waste. And I think that's the, like, Nintendo doesn't have
consultants.
Well, I mean, maybe, but the thing is, Nintendo doesn't have that waste. So it's like, why are they doing it? And the answer is, well, because we're Nintendo and we're the good guys and you love us, so you'll pay it and you'll thank us for it. $80, please.
You know, it's crazy. There are some games people will all automatically buy from Nintendo, which is when you said Mario Kart. I know whenever they announce Super Smash Brothers 6, that's going to be instantly bought day one. I was there in these Smash communities. These people are very weird in the Smash community. They're buying that day one, honestly. You know, and that's the thing. There's very few games you could even justify buying.
Maybe, yeah, but I mean, again, I think like the people that are that passionate about playing the big game day one are going to be diminishing over time. If that sticker price starts being like, okay, Now this isn't like, okay, this is going to be my game for the month. It's, well, now I got to consult my monthly budget and seeing if the game for a month is something I can even afford, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas I think the $60 price point was pretty good. Like I still think a lot of games were charging $60 when they probably should have been cheaper
They were
than
charging
that.
$60 for SpongeBob games, man. SpongeBob games were
But
charging
as I said,
$60.
I didn't necessarily say every single game. Probably should have. Well, licensed games are a bit trickier too, because sometimes they have like sometimes it's the publisher paying the license fee, so they're not expensive because
You're
they're
like,
high
Hot
development
Wheel
costs. They're
games,
expensive
remember?
because they also had to pay like Nickelodeon a whole bunch of money. But what I mean is, even if I'm willing to bet there's probably a good chance that Mario Kart World is the most expensive Mario Kart game they've ever made. It's
Probably, yeah.
still going to be significantly lower budget than most of the big AAA super realistic graphics games that are coming out on every other platform, because they don't have to pay motion capture actors. They don't have to pay animators nearly as much to model things in explicit detail, because it's a much more simple art style. And during the GameCube DS era, the strategy that, or sorry, Wii DS, yeah, Wii DS era, the strategy that Satoru Iwata came up with was called the blue water strategy. And that was basically that, hey, we don't want to compete with Microsoft and Sony on big fancy graphics, high-end hardware. We're going to have cheaper hardware that's lower powered, more affordable, has art styles that suit that hardware and suit the capabilities of our machines, so that more people can play our games and that our games are less expensive to develop. And they don't seem to have, like, again, which of the, because let's say even Switch 2 is as powerful as a PS4. Is there a game coming from Nintendo that they've announced at least that looks like The Last of Us remastered or something like that, that looks like it cost that much to make, that looks like they had a big studio with motion capture actors and everything?
Mhm.
No. So they're still making the same kind of games that they made, and they're just hoping that people pay it and no one notices that they're just doing it to get more money per unit. And I think it's a very bad business strategy, because as much as Nintendo does have a lot of diehard fans that are just going to buy it day one no matter what and not question it and thank them for it even, I think there's a lot of people who might have bought a Switch 2 and that new Mario Kart game thinking, yeah, no, I'll wait, or I'll just play something else. Or this PS5 that I got used on like Facebook Marketplace for $200 because it's like 2025 and the PS5 came out on in 2020. So
Yeah.
then I'm just gonna play those games. Or people realizing, hey, I could just buy a PC and then be able to play like all those old
Yeah.
Nintendo Switch, PS2, PS1, N64, GameCube games, every console ever, and as well as be able to get games super cheap on Steam. Even getting new release on things like key resellers like CD keys and stuff, where you
Yeah.
can usually
They're
get
just
about
hoping that
30% off per game. Like,
they're hoping that the average person, like let's say the average family, is gonna go and just buy a Switch 2. Because
I think most of them are gonna look at those sticker prices and being like, "Well, why the fuck like, can we just play the Mario Kart game that we have? Like, why do we
yeah,
need this new one?" It's like,
yeah,
"Oh, it's
that
big and it's
yeah.
open world and we can do, like, online video chats." Like, we're sitting here in this living room playing together. We don't need online video chat. Stop it.
Yeah.
Like,
Because like average parents don't even think about that stuff. They just kind of buy consoles and turn them on and they just use them. That's what they're hoping for. Now,
yeah.
given the fact that Switch 2 is going to have a lifespan of almost like 9-10 years, well, like by the end of that, we'll see if it was kind of worth it. I don't know up front, because it's kind of like with movies sometimes where it ebbs and flows. Like if someone really really wants something, they'll just kind of justify buying it. Like people like us will just kind of get it eventually when we get it. But like if there's enough demand for it to buy it day one or within about 3 months when it first drops, they'll just get it. The average person
Yeah.
isn't really thinking about that.
Well,
We'll
and
we
I mean,
won't know
again,
until it drops,
for the big marquee games, that could work, but there was a while where Disney was spending like $400 million on Marvel movies because after Endgame, they were certain that they'd be making $1 billion a pop. But
And
it's
were
like,
they
well,
wrong? Oh, were they wrong?
I mean, well,
So
that's the
much
thing. It's like
wrong.
ultimately, hey, like MCU, maybe you should spend less on these movies and try to actually clear a better profit on them by focusing on the things that cost less, like writing, good writing.
Oh no,
You
you
only
can't
have to
afford
pay
that.
one person for good writing, really. You just have to hire a good writer. And
No, remember what we learned about those strikes? They have like 12 writers in some of these rooms, and it's like, yeah, I can see why your
yeah,
movie's
well, I
now.
mean, yeah, no, but like that's the thing. It's like is paying 12 people to do that job working though? And like
Yeah,
is
yeah,
making the movies $400 million a pop as opposed to 60 to 100? Is that working for you? It's like ultimately the answer was no. And I think that I don't think Nintendo understands how many fewer games they will sell because there are a lot of people who are not going to want to spend over $100 after tax on a video game. And they might get Mario Kart. They might get Mario Odyssey 2 or whatever that ends up being. They might get the new Zelda. But again, the Kirby's, the Star Foxes, the like games that they make, Fire Emblem, like the games that have followings but aren't being sold to every person who just like, oh yeah, I recognize that brand. Sure, yeah, I'll get it because I like that. Like I think that pushing Nintendo Switch games into the $80 to $90 price range is a bad idea that is going to really bite them in the ass. And again,
yeah.
maybe not on the big marquee titles, but they're going to sell a lot fewer of the games that probably would have sold okay at a more reasonable price point. And yeah, no, we'll see how it goes, but
Mhm.
I think it's a really bad idea, and I think the only reason anyone's defending it is because it's Nintendo, and I think that if Take-Two does the thing that's been rumored for a while and makes Grand Theft Auto 6 $100, I think that that's gonna be the same idea, that there will be people who just say, "Well, it's GTA 6, I'm buying it no matter what, I don't care if it's $100."
Mhm.
And it's like, "Okay, but what happens when the next Assassin's Creed is $100 or the next like name any game once they start saying like, well, we put as much into this as Grand Theft Auto 6 for sure. And it's like ultimately it's going to result in more of these studios getting closed. It's going to result in all of them having far bigger budgets because they think they're going to need to be putting up in enough flash and thrill to make it look like they can be charging that much. And it's going to be a lot of safe bets, no risks being taken, no interesting ideas being put on the table, because ultimately it's going to be the investors saying what is working right now in the industry and selling, do that, which is why we're now seeing a big wave of extraction shooters popping up because people found out that Tarkov made money and then Call of Duty did an extraction mode. And it's the same thing that happened with battle royales like 5 years ago. You know, it's like it'll be a bunch of trend chasing and safe bets and fewer interesting, new, unique ideas. And which is why I
Yeah.
think that games like Kingdom Come Deliverance having a more we're just going to kind of do our own thing and be not a super user friendly game and one that involves a lot of wandering around a town practicing skills so that you naturally get better at them and things that aren't ultra marketable, but we spent a fraction of the money that these normal big AAA games spend and they made back double their budget in like under a month.
Because that's what I wanted
It's
to
like,
ask you, which was Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Do you remember the controversies? You know, that
yeah, I didn't particularly care about them, to be honest.
did
I
you actually
think
like
that
the game though?
well, yeah, I think it's a great game, but I think that the probably the biggest one was the historical figure Hans Capon's based on's age. So the trick there is that people were taking a codex entry from the game that's talking about the historical basis for one of the characters in the game and placing his age at the time of the game at like 15 years old when it's clearly like a 30-year-old man that's playing the character. And there's also plenty of characters like for example Mark von Olitz, who's the basically the main antagonist of the game. He was dead 3 years before that game takes place in real life. So I think that, like, that alone should be like, "Okay, well, this isn't a true story. It's just some historical figures that have some characters based on them that are being, like, used to tell a historical fiction story." And, yeah, I think that if they made him look 15, yeah, it would be pretty messed up. I actually think, honestly, my bigger problem with that is making Hans Capon, as a person who played the original game, making him a love interest is weird because he's like the Frodo to your Sam in it. And like I've my big complaint about it is just like, man, can't men just be friends? Like, and he's a womanizer too, so like it sort of doesn't make any sense that he's like, oh yeah, I'm gay now, by the way. But not your character. I guess your character theoretically you can make him whatever you want, but
Yeah.
like the other character, it's like his whole thing was like, yeah, he chases girls around the entire first game. So having the option for him to just suddenly turn gay because the player wants him to, I thought was weird. But again, like it's also a role playing game, and I don't care who you romance in Persona or Mass Effect or anything like that or Baldur's Gate. So I like, yeah, it's just not really on my radar of things that bothered me. But I think like the big lesson to learn from that game though is you can get a big AAA open world game that looks fantastic and not spend upwards of $400 million on it. Like you can do it for under 100 million. You just
Yeah.
got to spend your money right.
The companies literally just aren't the companies that hire these people to do these games, they literally are not having the people utilize their budgets effectively. That's why things are coming out with games that are what have to be patched day one, buggy messes. They have to
Yeah, and I mean, and that might end up happening regardless. And my solution to that I've actually been saying since like the for 5 years now, like since Cyberpunk 2077 came out, is that we should really normalize the idea of things that are not done. And if they need to launch for financial or business reasons, just don't be afraid of the term early access. Like tell the customer, say, hey, early access version of this game is coming out. If you want to jump in now, feel free to give us some feedback. Let us know what we need to work on. We'll let you know when the full game launches. And they probably should have waited until Phantom Liberty was done and made that like the launch of Cyberpunk and had the first few years of it be the early access. But like that's Cyberpunk's probably a good example of how not to launch a game that you're telling people is finished when it clearly needs a lot more work. But I think Baldur's
Remember,
Gate 3 is a great example of that strategy working beautifully because I actually made a video on Geeks and Gamers in 2020 on Baldur's Gate 3. And it was early access at the time. You could only play Act 1. I liked it a lot. And it's actually still on, I think it's on Geeks and Gamers Play. You can find it on my channel in the Marc's Geeks and Gamers videos playlist.
do you
But
remember the Star Wars Outlaw thing where basically they had people that had the game restart the entire thing over because of some sort of like bug or whatever happened with it? Like
well,
that's
I mean, yeah, and like Ubisoft, I think anything they should not be used as a good example for anything in like the
that's
last
true.
4 years at least. But what I mean is that like
But they
the
own
point I was
Grums,
the point I
man.
was
They
getting
ratio
to.
Grums. So,
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. The point I was getting to with Baldur's Gate though is that even though that game was out and playable and actually cheaper than full price for a good chunk of time, it still came out 2 years ago now and made tons of money and won awards and was like the talk of the town. And it wasn't like, oh, well, it launched in early access and no one cares about it when it actually comes out. It's like, no, that's not true though. It's like, because when you launch things in early access and you tell people, yeah, this is an early access game, the people who pay you money and then play it are interested. And
yeah.
they will tend to play it multiple times and write into you, join your discords and say, hey, I noticed a bug in this thing here, or I would think it would be really cool if we could do this because I tried this and it's similar to something that we did earlier in the game, but it doesn't work here. Could you maybe put that in? And developers being able to get that kind of feedback while pulling in money, it's basically crowdfunding. Like early access is essentially crowdfunding, but saying, yeah, you can crowdfund this game and the reward you get for it is you can play it now and you can play every build of it that we put up and we're going to be updating it. And, I think that instead of launching a buggy mess, just say, hey, we didn't get this game to where we wanted to be when we wanted to launch it. We're going to launch it anyways. It's early access. We'll have a press conference and let you know when this game's at 1.0. So if you play now, understand there's going to be problems.
Yeah.
Understand we want to fix those problems. We would love your support, but if you also want to play the final product, you should probably just wait on it for now. And I think most people don't have a problem with that because it's like I said, Baldur's Gate 3 is the one that it clearly worked very well for.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to ask you a little bit for was YouTube. So, what made you want to do YouTube? Did you just see someone that you liked actually that you kind of want to go like, hey, I can do this too?
No, not really. I actually just started when I was dealing with my amputation recovery. I started playing the Dark Souls games, and because I'd
Remember
recently,
those? Yeah, they were huge for a while.
I'd not too long before that got a pretty decent PC. I was playing around with NVIDIA's Shadowplay, which when you hit Alt F10, it saves like your last 20 minutes of gameplay footage, and it's really high quality and looks nice. As I said, I worked in the film industry and I had a film degree and I knew how to video edit pretty well. So I finished playing Yakuza 0 and a buddy of mine was asking me about just what I'd been playing that week. And I told him about it. And he's like, oh, it's on sale on Steam right now. Should I get it? And I was like, no. He's like, why? I was like, I don't think you'll like it. He's like, you just told me it was awesome. I was like, yeah, I don't know. I just think there's things about it that probably won't click with you. It's like, tell you what, I've been capturing a bunch of footage of this game, and I have video editing software that I've not even touched. I'll make a little project for myself, and I'll make you a little video review of Yakuza Zero. And I did, and I uploaded it to my like older personal channel at the time, and people seemed to like it. And then I think the next one I did was A Plague Tale: Innocence came out, and that was a short game. So I was like, oh well, I'll see if I can do one for like a newish release game because I feel like I can knock this game out in a weekend, and did that. And then I think the third one, no, then I did Project Warlock, and then I think the fourth video I made was on Bloodstained Curse of the Moon, which is like a Castlevania style game. And Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers just saw that video on Twitter, and yeah, and people were making fun of him because he had a channel called Geeks and Gamers that was just about Hollywood drama news and nothing at all about video games. And yeah, so then he kind of hired me to make video game reviews on Geeks and Gamers for a while, and I was doing that for like a few years until I decided to kind of move away from doing the Geeks and Gamers stuff and working on my own things. And yeah, that's pretty much
it.
it.
It wasn't because you had any sort of like fallout with Jeremy or anything. It's just you just want to do your own thing. That was it.
I mean, no, it's just that like I didn't want to be cranking out a video every week and having to like play. It was what I would be doing at that time is I'd have a new releases of the month video that was kind of my breather week. Because I would just have to get trailer footage and write like a little blurb about each game and cut that together, which didn't take me all that long. But then other than that, I'd have to play 3 games to completion, write scripts on them, and edit them inside of a month. And that was like killing me. And what I was making on it was all right, but not enough that could really justify the amount of time I was putting into it. So I just guess that like I sort of just said, hey, like either let's do larger projects with me where like I'll like yeah, more valuable projects that take me longer and I can spend more time on, or I'll just do it on my own. And he wasn't really interested in that, so I just kind of started making things on my own channel. And Metroid video I made, it has more views than any video I made on Geeks and Gamers, even though I have like a 7.5K sub channel. And I was like, okay, well, it's like I guess maybe if you give me a little time to cook, that works out. But
so you
yeah,
started your channel when 2020 essentially.
No, before that, like 2019, maybe 2018.
Okay. How you feeling about doing YouTube content now compared to when you first started?
I mean, I
enjoy it.
Like I guess I don't really do it much now. I just I have Forge, the podcast that I do with Metal Commander. Every so often I'm on EFAP. And I did start I recorded a video and started editing it this weekend, actually. And it's, yeah, and it'll be the first video that's been on my channel in quite some time if I get around to finishing it, though. About half an hour of audio edited. I think it'll probably end up being about an hour and a half, 2 hours, depending on how the rest of the audio editing goes. But I've sort of moved away from like pursuing YouTube as a full-time gig and more into just a hobby again. And I've just kind of been focusing more on my military career and like, staying in better shape and doing new sports. Like I recently took up sword fighting. So that's
sword fighting.
Yeah. Historical European martial arts.
God. Oh shit. So the last thing we'll cover,
yeah, taking care of my pups. Hey,
is those you put those guys outside. Those guys need to go outside for a little bit.
Oh, and I mean, like I don't have my camera hooked up, but if I were on camera, she's almost going to do it again because they just came back. So what happens? Jojo will kind of perch herself on my right side, like in my right elbow, basically on my lap. And then Rocky will come over here and he wants to be close too, but he has to cross Jojo to get to the left side, which is where he normally hangs out. And Jojo is very territorial of daddy. So she she doesn't like Rocky entering her space when she's getting snuggled, but she doesn't have front teeth, so I try not to discourage her from growling and barking because it's kind of her only means of defense. And but at the same time, I do try to be good about muting, which I might have to do shortly.
So the last thing
at the end of the couch, though,
you said you wanted to cover was how the MCU has been. So you've been with the MCU, I'd imagine, since the very beginning, like a lot of us were. and they've went from, I guess, like the highest highs you could ever experience for a movie franchise up to the
Yeah.
point now where they're now in the spot that DC's at. You know,
I mean,
back,
like,
yeah.
honestly, I'm almost more upset at them now than I even was like a few weeks ago, just because like Daredevil's my favorite Marvel hero and like has been since I was like younger. And
Mhm.
I really, really like the Netflix show a lot. I thought that that was like probably the best thing Marvel did, like live action, with maybe the
Yeah.
exception of the like, I don't know, like, I'd say, Civil War, Infinity War, and Captain America: First Avenger are probably, like, my favorite of the Marvel movies, and maybe the first
First
Guardians of
Avenger,
the
really
Galaxy.
underrated. Now, if you
Oh,
look back
yeah,
on
yeah,
it,
I
yeah.
love that movie. I actually recently rewatched it, and it holds up quite
Holds up
well.
very
In fact,
well. Yeah. Solid movie. Yeah.
but yeah, and, they're kind of a lost cause at this point. I mean, people are saying that, "Oh, well, I mean, the Russo brothers are back, and all the cast is back for Avengers: Doomsday." I'm like, "Yeah, we'll see." Daredevil's back too.
Remember how it was said Kevin Feige walked in and destroyed that previous Daredevil thing that they were doing to rebuild it from scratch,
Yeah,
so they
well,
have
I
to
mean,
delay it.
like if they replaced it with something that was genuinely good, I would have been very happy. But yeah, Daredevil Born Again sucks. It's it's not good at all. It really bothers me very often when I'm watching it. The newest episode, God, it infuriated me so much. And if I seem like I'm in a bad mood today, it's because I recently watched episode 8 of Daredevil Born Again. Not that it's any worse than the last few episodes, but it's just God. Yeah.
I gave up on the Disney Plus MCU shows after She-Hulk. It was like She-Hulk season 1,
Oh,
episode
yeah,
6.
I gave up long before Captain America: Winter Soldier was it for me. I was like, after that, I'm just like, okay, maybe I don't want to be watching all of these as they come out. And then Loki came out. I
Yeah.
watched like 2 episodes and I was out. And
Yeah,
yeah, and
Loki was
I've been
trash.
pretty much out on the MCU for a pretty substantial amount of time. I didn't mind Guardians 3, but I think it's the weakest of the 3 Guardians movies. And
Mhm.
I liked Spider-Man: No Way Home. I thought it was okay, but there's things about that that really bothered me too. Like I thought in order for that whole movie to happen, they had to make both Doctor Strange and Spider-Man retarded at the beginning of the movie. Like, and I said that when the trailers were coming out, everyone was like, "Oh yeah, but this movie's gonna be amazing. Like, it's got Doctor Octopus." I was like, guys, like they had just like Doctor Strange is just like not. He's saying to him, "Hey, stop interrupting me in the middle of this spell," because they even show that in the trailer. He's just like, "Look, I'm trying to concentrate on this. Please don't interrupt me while I do this." And Peter's like, "Oh, but make it so that this person remembers." And it's like, motherfucker, like you realize he's bending reality right now. What are you doing interrupting him? You know nothing about this Spider-Man. You're a smart kid, Peter. You know nothing about using magic to rearrange the memories of everyone on the planet. Stop.
Do you
And then, like,
remember
even
when
Doctor Strange not just being like, "Okay, here, tell you what, I'm gonna open up a little portal. I'm gonna shove you through it.
Yeah, that's what he should have did,
You're
yeah.
in the Bahamas right now on a beach. Enjoy that little vacation. I'll come get you when I'm done this." Like, I mean, it was just like, why did those characters not make those decisions? So even the one that I like the most from the post Endgame MCU movies, it still has things about it that really, really bother me.
Or do you remember when the MCU Disney Plus shows first started and they were dropping at like 12 my time, probably 3 your time, and people were watching them week to week as they came out? And I was like,
Well, I mean, I guess WandaVision maybe was the only time I remember that happening. Because like,
yeah,
even, like, I mean, WandaVision, I was watching as it was coming out, but
same here,
even,
yeah.
like, Captain America: Winter Soldier, most of the people that I was talking to about WandaVision, after WandaVision ended and how it just got kinda stupid, like, no one was really interested in it, at least amongst my, like, real life friends. Like, they were just
Mhm.
like, "I don't know. Maybe it'd still
Yeah,
be good
I always
because
said the same thing
Winter
too.
Soldier
Like,
is kinda good, but I don't really care." And
at a certain point, I was sitting here going like, "Wow, this is not must-see TV. I have to sit here and watch and wait for these episodes to drop." And I did it all the way up until She-Hulk. I even did it after Hawkeye, Moon Knight, Miss Marvel, and I was like, "I'm done."
I watched 1 episode of Moon Knight. I've not seen a single second of Hawkeye. I did not watch She-Hulk. Like I've not really been keeping up on anything in the MCU aside from the few movies I've gone out to see. And the last one I saw, which was Captain America: Brave New World, I only saw because we were covering it on Forge. And had Metal Commander not say, "Yeah, we're covering Captain America: Brave New World," I would not have gone to see it. I would probably still not have seen it now. I don't even watch these movies when they come on to Disney Plus. Like, it's just like, well, I just don't really care. And I really don't think that Doomsday is going to turn it around. I hope it does because I want this stuff to be good. I think the MCU is kind of a lost cause. Daredevil was the last straw for me, I think. I'm in full-blown doomer mode on MCU. That's not a Doctor
No,
Doom
we
pun.
lost him. Oh no. No, it's one of these things where even if I want to give the benefit of the doubt to Doomsday and Secret Wars that'll come out, well, the MCU has proven after and before these movies have even come out that they really don't know what they're doing. Like we know they're gonna pivot to like X-Men, but do you have any? I mean, I don't have any hope they're gonna do anything good with X-Men. Like, look at their track record.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't have any. Like Star Wars too. It's like people like, but Mandalorian and Grogu is gonna come out. In what possible world do you think that would be good based off the Star Wars?
I mean, Star Wars, I've got my one thread of hope for Star Wars is that Andor season 2 will be good, but if man, like even then, like I'm really skeptical of that being the case. Just after what happened to Arcane. I know it's like not the same company, but like I think Arcane season 1 is just a full blown masterpiece, and Arcane season 2 is just what everybody figured a Netflix League of Legends show would have been in the first place. It's just
it
hardly makes any sense. Yeah. Character motivations are just not there at all. They seem like they gas pedaled through 5 seasons in the span of 1 season, and I was like, oh, they lost it.
Of course they would. Of course, I mean,
it's why I'm happy everyone in Cyberpunk Edge Runners for the most part is dead. I'm just like, okay, just don't do a second Edge Runner season, or like if you do, just make it about totally different characters. Like at least David's dead. We don't have to worry about them fucking up the one video game adaptation that they actually nailed. Because I'll tell you this much, Devil May Cry sucks. Although I've been watching the 2007 Devil May Cry anime, I'm 4 episodes in, and it's significantly better.
No, I knew Riot Games would do that. Like, if people have been around Riot Games as long as I have with League of Legends.
I mean, I did. Like, I'm not really like a League guy or anything like that. In fact, I probably put more time into Valorant than League. And funny enough, that's just because I played the Valorant beta for a Geeks and Gamers video.
Yeah,
but
I tried Valorant. I couldn't do it, man.
I guess like I was good enough at Counter-Strike that the skills kind of transferred. So, like, I don't know. And I had not played Counter-Strike in a long time either.
Did you not play CS:GO too?
No. Like I had not played Counter-Strike since since like 2003. It had probably been about like 15 years since I'd played that kind of game. But just once I realized that, oh, this is just Counter-Strike with Overwatch characters, and you know, it's pretty good. I didn't mind it and played a hell of a lot of that beta. And I played actually pretty regularly during its first season, but then I've never played it since. I'm not really like much of a multiplayer gamer though. So like, I mean, every so often one will get its hooks in me and I'll play it for like 6 months, but you will not see me as a person who buys the multiple season passes of one multiplayer video game. I just like, I've kind of got like a season in me maybe. And then I'm kind of just like, yeah, okay, I've played what I need to play of this.
Oh man, just seeing where Riot went with things, like, yeah, Riot's had so many problems with everything. Like, when people said it turned to a show full of lesbians, like, yeah, people not been around Riot for the last. I mean,
like
9
I didn't
years.
like that. I mean, granted, Vi and Caitlyn were gay in season 1, and like that didn't bother me, like because I thought actually their story was pretty well written in that season. Their relationship was pretty complex, and I thought that it developed in a way that was reasonable. Whereas everything that happens with the character relationships in season 2 is just we need to get ththese characters to here now, and how did this person make this decision after this happened? Who cares? They're where they need to be. That's all that matters. And I don't know. I don't know if it's the same people who wrote it and they just really didn't want to put the work into that they put in for season 1. But yeah, season 1 and season 2, giant gap in writing quality. Still looks good. Arcane's a really pretty looking show. I'll give it that. But yeah, and Andor similarly, I think that Andor's slow and it definitely doesn't kick off being ultra interesting. But I would recommend, if you haven't seen Andor, stick with it until you get to the prison, because the prison arc in Andor is like George Lucas tier Star Wars stuff. It's like it belongs amongst the original trilogy and things, and like conversations about good Star Wars content. And I don't know if they're going to be able to have any things like Kino Loy's speech as they're escaping the prison in season 2, but like again, Arcane just maybe be like, okay, I'm not giving anyone the benefit of the doubt. I'll watch it. I hope it's good, but nothing else in Star Wars in the last 5 years has given me any indication that they're not going to drop the ball. So,
but I heard you were such a big, like, I heard you were a huge Last Jedi fan. That's your favorite movie.
Yeah, if anything, Last Jedi is one of the reasons why I'm here, because I don't think Jeremy might not got it would have got nearly as big, I think, without all the TLJ stuff that sort of kicked off his career, which then ended up introducing me to guys like Muller, who, funny enough, actually I would watch Muller, and actually Rags is probably the first of the EFAP guys who I would watch, because I watched him for PC
Yeah.
gaming stuff before Last
Yeah.
Jedi, or like
You watched
all of
Muller's
the
9-hour Multiverse of Madness video on Doctor Strange?
yeah, yeah. Actually, I helped edit his.
9 hours.
I edited some of his Fallout video, so I'm
Oh
doing. I
God.
mean, even my Metroid video is like 2 hours. Like, I'm not opposed to the long video. I like long form analysis. Generally, though, a long form video like that, I'll maybe when his TFA ones come out, like the Force Awakens ones, I'll usually like sit down and watch it once, and then if I want to watch it again or like listen to like understand some of the arguments better, I'll just have it like playing in my car while I'm driving, and you can get a lot out of a Mahler video by just listening to it. So
Oh, sure.
that tends to be the thing there. And if anything, my videos aren't really like that, because I use a lot of gameplay footage and I try to make it so that what you're seeing on screen is relevant to what I'm talking about.
That's hard. Yeah. I
And
want to do videos like
yeah.
that too. It's just hard to do when you edit them, all that, you know?
I mean, honestly, the video editing I find is the fun part. What I'm doing right now on the video I'm making on the Berserk games is the hard part, because it's audio editing. So it's me sitting on this couch, listening to my own voice, doing bad takes on lines over and over again until I can find the good ones and cut those together without being able to like see anything on screen. So you got to just listen each time, whereas like footage, you can kind of scrub through and see the footage that you need to get, put an in point, put an out point, and then fix it once it's in the timeline. But audio editing is just, I got to listen to this line, I got to listen to this other delivery of that same line, and then chopping it down. But my original audio files, I have 5 separate recordings over the course of like 2 days, 7.5 hours long, that I've now cut a 29 finished minutes out of, and I'm at the end of the Dreamcast game. So I've got 2 more games of audio to edit through, and then video editing begins. Hopefully I'll be finished it by like conservatively the end of May, maybe the end of this month.
Oh,
it really just depends on how much time I can actually get on my computer editing, because I work full time.
Working, so you're not a black person? Sorry.
Well, and now my Saturdays, like I do my sword fighting classes on Saturdays, and that's 2 hours of actual class, and it's 40 minutes away from me, so that's like a solid 4 hours out of the one day that I'm not working. One of the 2 days. Oh, I mean the one day, because on Sunday I have Forge, and that's
Sunday you have Forge. So
yeah,
essentially you're free what, Monday through Saturday?
Well, I'm on leave tomorrow. I got to go drop off my rental car and pick up my car from the dealership because I'm getting it serviced, and then I'm getting a haircut. Then I'm going to come here and edit audio. So I'm hoping to get the audio editing done by tomorrow, or at least Saturday, before I go fight people with swords. Which yeah, it's pretty fun sport though. I do recommend it. If you can find a club near you, you should give it a shot. I actually won a sword fight 2 weeks ago by choking a guy out. It was pretty cool.
Are you Rurouni Kenshin or something?
Well, I mean, because you're allowed to get into clinches and grapple, and when you're doing free sparring, you're kind of self-reffing. So if you get hit like with a sword, a blade in the chest or the head, or the arm, when it's like a clean blow and not just like glanced off the shoulder or something like that, if you're wearing armor, then like you stop and say, okay, that's a point. But this guy was half swording, and that's when you're like holding the blade of your own sword with one of your like gloved hands, and kind of parried me and then grabbed my sword. And instead of like trying to struggle back and then get my sword free and hit him, I just let go of my sword immediately, got him in a rear naked choke, brought him to the ground, and tapped him out. And yeah, you can win the round that way too.
Well,
I was pretty pleased with myself though. I was like, yeah, jiu-jitsu wins again.
Essentially, even though you were at like half strength, because you said you don't have one of your legs, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, like, funny enough, my footwork for the swordsmanship stuff is not terrible. Like, and I mean, I honestly thought I'd be worse than I was. So I wear a boxing shoe so that I don't like destroy the mat in like the martial arts club that we go to. And and I've been moving around all right, and trying to do my best to get to know the footwork, and it's pretty good. I'm not terrible with a longsword, however useful that is in 2025.
Well, the last few
But
things I'll ask you.
I'm not for self-defense or anything. It's for sport, and it's fun.
The last few things I'll ask you was the first thing, which is, do you have anything planned coming up that you want to let the audience know about?
Well, I guess that the Berserk video is kind of the only YouTube related thing that I'm working on right now. Otherwise, Forge on Sunday on Metal Commander's channel. It's every week. We try not to miss any weeks. If we do, we try to have a pre-record lined up for those weeks. And this week, I think we're just doing a gaming Forge. I think we might be playing this game called Repo that I don't own and never played. So I don't really want to talk that up because I don't know anything about it really. But otherwise, we'll be playing some other video game with a few other guys on the channel. And last week we did The Mist with like the Frank Darabont movie with Thomas Jane with Little Platoon, who he's a fairly big YouTuber with he's one of the new EFAP hosts as well, and he was our guest and we talked about Frank Darabont's The Mist. So if you want to see our most recent episode, say that'd be the one to check out. I thought it was a pretty good discussion.
Hell yeah. Can't wait to have you on for another appearance at some point, or maybe we have you on a guest on one of the panel shows anytime soon, whenever you're free. That'd be kind of cool.
I mean, if it's a topic you think I'll know something about, just let me know the day and time in advance if you can, so then I can try to plan around it. Or if it's just like, if it's like during Forge, obviously I can't do it. And even if it's like a Saturday, if I have to miss a sword class to like guest on a show, like I don't mind doing that every once in a while. But yeah,
we need you as a guest on CNN broadcast. We need you to talk about Black people issues, man.
I mean, yeah, I'm probably the least qualified person to talk about stuff like that. Like I'm Italian. That's
So I've been pizza.
I mean,
pizza and spaghetti.
The joke I was gonna make is that I have a buddy of mine who's the gayest person I know, and he's a Filipino guy, but he only likes white guys. And he once said that he would not be attracted to me because I'm not white. I'm off-white. I'm Italian. I always found that was pretty funny.
Oh, shit. Oh, God. Well, last thing I'll ask you, man, which is, do you have any shout-outs you want to give to anyone in particular, and anything else you want to say before we head out?
Yeah, I guess Metal Commander. Go to Metal Commander's channel. It's exactly like it sounds. METAL Commander. And you'll find me on his podcast. He also streams. He's currently streaming The Last of Us Part 2. And he first played The Last of Us 1 like a month ago and is now it's his first experience with The Last of Us Part 2 story, and he's loving it.
One thing I want to say here, speaking of The Last of Us, PlayStation just announced you can get a Last of Us like fucking deluxe hardcover set or whatever, remastered, because that's all PlayStation can do now is just remaster the same shit.
Like a steelbook or like the game, or are you talking? Is this like a comic?
Yeah, like maybe they took it down. I saw it earlier. I clicked the link. It looked pretty legit. They had a fucking thing up for The Last of Us. Like they were going to do some sort of like compilation.
I feel like I read a Last of Us comic. Was there a Last of Us comic? I'm now kind of forgetting everything about it, but I feel like I remember the cover.
Yeah, it feels like with PlayStation, they can only just remaster a bunch of stuff they've already released.
Naughty Dog, that's the case at least. And I think, I mean, they got that intergalactic game that I'm sure it's going to be great. It's apparently going to be Mr. Naughty Dog's Elden Ring.
Mr. Neil Druckmann, whatever the fuck that guy's name is, Neil.
Justice for Bruce Straley. I like The Last of Us 1. I thought it was good, but
they announced the Last of Us
the guy who directed that game is gone.
The Last of Us Season 3 TV show is going to be coming out apparently.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think for a while they'd said that they're not finishing The Last of Us Part 2 in one season, so I kind of knew that. And if anything, I think they're probably going to pad Joel's death out to like the end of this season. Good spoilers Lord, if you haven't seen The Last of Us Part 2's cinematics. No, I did make a video on that, technically. I made a video comparing The Last of Us Part 2 and Days Gone. So I have played The Last of Us Part 2. I didn't just hate on it for no reason. I actually played
I always think people
sucks.
should play the games. The reason why I say that is because trailers, yes, if the trailer doesn't convince you to play the game, that's fine. I always agree with that because trailers are supposed to be the advertising material for the games. But how many like movies or TV shows have we seen like bad trailers for, and then the stuff came out to be pretty good? I would always say play it if you can.
I think the thing that you can do for especially a game like The Last of Us Part 2, if you want to criticize it with actual weight and not just be a quote, quote, hater, which a lot of people were called quote, quote, haters when they had legitimate criticism of The Last of Us Part 2. Like watch the game on YouTube. Like watch someone stream it or watch an uploaded no commentary playthrough, and you will get a pretty good idea of at least the story. Now, I
Mhm.
would caution people with criticizing the gameplay too hard in those situations. You can criticize things like the AI because that's stuff you can see, but I as much as I really don't like the shooting mechanics in The Last of Us 1 or 2, even though I liked the first game, uh, I still would caution people against criticizing the gameplay of a game that you've not played in any what would be the word for it? In any level of stubbornness. Like, try not to be too hardline about those criticisms. Just be honest about it. Like, say, well, I've not played this game, but I have watched people play it, and it seems like these mechanics are a little bit weird for these reasons. Don't say, yeah, well, I mean, that game sucks though, and not have like, but not have actual experience to back it up with. And actually, that's what I did at first. I watched the game on YouTube and didn't like the story all that much, but I figured it had good gameplay because I was like, well, I don't mind the gameplay from the first game, and this looks like that, but better. And it wasn't until I played it when I was going to make a video on it, and I wanted to do that, so I wasn't just talking out of my ass. Uh, I found the things like the encounter design really bothered me and was a significant step down from the original game in a lot of ways. And yeah, so just it doesn't take long to be honest. You can always just be honest about where your experience is, and if
Also, yeah,
anyone
I agree.
if anyone tries to tell you, oh, like, yeah, but you don't know because you didn't play it, just be like, well, no, I didn't play it, but my criticism isn't about the parts that I played or not. It's about the story because I did watch the whole story, and you can still make those criticisms if you are upfront about exactly what you're criticizing. So you don't have to play the game in order to talk about Joel's death being handled really poorly. But I would also recommend, watch it, or at least watch up until his death, as opposed to just hearing somebody say, oh, yeah, Joel dies in the first hour of the game and therefore bad, and then just repeating that.
Yeah, because that'll make you like an NPC. I thought I told people this. Even when it comes to like movies, if you can, you don't have to go into the theater to watch it because movies drop from the theaters out of like
Well, I
3
mean,
weeks
there you
now.
go. That's the real value behind like a 4-hour Mauler video on a movie that's terrible. If you
Yeah.
if you want a bunch of arguments as to why Multiverse of Madness is bad, watch Mauler's video on Multiverse of Madness. You'll have tons of them.
Oh no, it's just one of those things where yeah, Long Man. Well, yeah, that's where the meme came from. Long Man Dead. I remember that. That was funny.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, because their whole thing is like, oh, he thinks he's smart just because he makes the videos long. It's like, no, no, no. He's making points. He's making points through
Yeah,
those. Like, all those videos are like loaded with actual criticisms based on things which happen in the movie.
yeah, which is crazy because I told people this. Just even if you don't want to go watch a new movie because you think it might be bad, you don't have to go to a theater. These movies come out very very quick on digital now, so you could literally watch it for free at home when it drops on digital. And you, while watching it, you might not like it, but at least like you said earlier, you'll have a knowledgeable
I
point
mean,
that you
yeah,
can argue from instead of
that
just
is
being like an
that is
NPC.
why I sat through more than one episode of the Devil May Cry show, because I was like, oh, well, I hate this. Let's see if it gets any better at any point, and it doesn't. Gets worse, actually.
Oh, God. Well, it was great having you on, man, for the first time. It was
Yeah,
definitely
thanks for having me.
interesting talking to a Canadian, as you guys definitely love your mousses and maple syrup.
Oh yeah, eh. Moose is a proud and noble beast.
Ugh, God, you got to shoot them down with arrows when you see them. Those things are deadly. Just saying, those things will
You
probably
need
kill
a,
me
you
if
need
I
a
was up
pretty
there.
heavy arrow to kill a moose. They're fucking gigantic. No, like I've seen one in real life. They're huge. They're like dinosaur huge. Like you sort of wouldn't believe how big it is unless like once it's standing in front of you. Like
Oh
it's not like a
God,
horse with with big antlers. It's like it's a giant animal.
oh God. So thank you guys for checking out this episode of the MSK Show, and we will see you guys later. Have a great day.